Josh's lesson this morning we'll be talking about the compassion of Jesus, and the scripture that he had this morning is from the King James Version, Matthew 9:36. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad, and sheep having no shepherd, as sheep having no shepherd.
Good morning, everybody. We got a good-looking audience here this morning. You know, I never see really what you look like until after, but this morning I got to pass the emblems, and I still didn't look at you. So up here is a different perspective. I did all right this morning. They only had to correct me once back there. I don't know what it is, but this kind of stuff I can't do very well. But it's so good to see you all. So good to see guests. So good to have family back. It's so good to just be here together. I'm so excited about church. I'm so glad you led that song, Scott, because that's what I pray for every day anymore. I pray for revival, and not just here in this community, but I've been praying for the nation, and I've been using that word, revival. And I think it might be happening. You look around and it's amazing the way people are starting to wake up and see that the way the world's been going isn't the right direction. And so keep praying for revival, because God can do it. And he can use you to affect change on so many people. Now, this morning, I kind of want to talk about that and sort of look at the maybe we'll consider a schematic. That's the word we learned in Bible school. We'll consider a schematic to working with other people. You know, working with other people and having compassion on people is not always the easiest thing to do. Now, I would say, or call on you to say amen to that, but I'm not gonna bother you in that fashion. But I think you understand what I mean. You ever tried to make new friends when you get older? It's not the easiest. You know, one of the complaints I had heard about the church, and I think we've talked about this here, I'm not sure, but I think we have. One of the complaints I've heard leveled at the church is, well, there's a bunch of cliques down there. And I don't mean this church in particular. I just mean every church I've ever been to. Someone will say, well, you know, that church has its cliques. What are they talking about? Do we still use that word today? Is that something that is used? But what do I mean by cliques? Well, what they mean is that there's just certain little groups that are together all the time, and, you know, they don't really want anything to do with anybody else. Well, I had heard that whenever I was younger, and sometimes I found it to be true. But more than not, I found it simply to be human nature. You know, let's take, for instance, if we have a potluck dinner, if we have a new guest, they're generally going to try to find someplace alone to sit because they don't want to intrude. And we who are older, well, we've got our own assigned seats already, right? And so what we need to do is we need to be more accommodating, and we need to invite them in and really go out of our way to make them feel comfortable. And it's not that anybody doesn't want to do that. As you get older, you just don't think about doing that very often, right? I can tell you, if you are new and you want to sit down next to anybody here at church during the potluck, you can do it. They would gladly welcome you there. If you're sitting next to Tommy, just watch you don't get the fork in you or anything like that. But we will accommodate. Fact of the matter is, as you get older, it's a lot of work to make new relationships. Number one, we've got to where we are tired of dealing with drama. And anytime you have new relationships, drama comes along with that. You know what I'm talking about? All right, and as you get older, by the way, not everybody, but if you have any common sense, you want to steer clear of that. And you don't want more problems in your life. Also, to make new friends, guess what? It costs money. You're going to go out and you're going to have that argument. No, let me get it. No, you get it. Right? And that works that way, and you feel this way. And so you're investing your money. And it takes time, which you don't have because you've got everything planned out during the day, especially in the evening, because that's the time we watch TV, right? And so it's hard. And so it's not so much a click as it is we just don't want to invest everything. The problem is we're called to do just the opposite. We are called to invest our compassion and our love into new relationships. And again, it's not always easy, especially if you are introverted. Now, in my house is a prime example of complete opposites. I am such an introvert in that house. Well, I think we know who the introvert is. I could talk to anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter. No matter where we're at, I can talk. And I can talk about anything. It doesn't matter to me. Where Laura is just the opposite. You see? And she has to tell me when to keep my mouth shut sometimes. And I can encourage her to talk a little bit more sometimes. You see, we don't like getting out of our comfort zone. But Jesus lived on the edge of the comfort zone. And he literally made so many people uncomfortable, especially his apostles. Now, we're called to be compassionate. A church sign said this: we care about you Sundays, 10 a.m. only. Did you get that, Tommy? We care about you Sundays, 10 a.m. only. The point was, we care about you, but they wanted you to know the times, and the only time they met was Sunday at 10 a.m. only. Is that the only time we care about people? Because sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it? Sometimes we present coming here to church as our Christian duty for the week, and then we're done, and we don't have to worry about our morals. We can check our halo at the door, and that's it. Joseph Parker said, preach to the suffering and you'll never lack a congregation. There's a broken heart in every pew. And I think this is true. Broken hearts. I remember when I was younger, I remember my first broken heart. Yeah, she left me for my good buddy. Devastated. Thought the world was going to end for a couple days. Right? As life goes on, things happen, and you realize that there's a lot bigger problems than what you thought back then. The fact of the matter is, though, those little problems, they condition us for these big ones, don't they? And as we go through life, we find that there are broken hearts in every pew. We all suffer with this, and it's getting worse. I told you America leads the world in suicide now. And the number one reason is loneliness. With all of this world, or with all of the love that's in the world, it's amazing there doesn't seem to be enough love to go around. So I've been watching TV in the evenings. What am I going to watch? We own every streaming platform there is, and yet we can't find anything good to watch. So what do we settle on this time of year? Those sappy Hallmark love Christmas movies. We've watched one every night. We watched one on Netflix, was that last night or the night before? Hot Santa, or Hot Frosty. Have you guys watched that one yet? Well, it's about Frosty the Snowman coming to life, but Frosty happens to be this very hot, attractive guy. And you know how Hallmark works it. They end up falling in love, and everyone lives happily ever after, and the hot snowman continues to live, and there you go. So we watch these love stories. And I remember when I was younger, there's no way you could even get me to watch a love story. But love, compassion, we're entertained by it. It's our focus everywhere we go. And yet there doesn't seem to be enough love to go around. I heard about a teaching hospital. And in this hospital, there was a floor with children who were very, very ill. And this lady was telling the story of a young doctor, who just seemed to be perfect with children. They responded to everything they say. He was able to manage them, and they all seemed to love him. And none of the other residents who were studying knew how to get the same effect from children that he did. And then one night, late at night, she was doing the rounds with him, and she found the answer. Every night, this young resident doctor would take the little children and physically tuck them in the bed and give them a hug and a kiss and just love on them. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes Laura will come home and she'll say, what am I supposed to do with these kids, these troubled kids? My first inclination is, well, can you beat them? We all know that can't happen. So what do? Can you discipline them? I'm here to tell you, in your school systems, you can't hardly discipline kids anymore. Do you send them to the principal? I mean, what do you do? And we've come to the conclusion, and I tell her all the time, here's what you do when that troubled kid makes trouble for you. You just love them. Just love them. You know, we've got a number of people that are involved in the school system here in this congregation, and I'm telling you what, that's a ministry. If you work in a hospital, that's a ministry. I've come to the conclusion, if nurses can't make it to heaven, nobody's going to. I mean, there are times in life where you face terrible, just mind-boggling tragedy. What do? And people are leaning on you. Just love them. Love them as much as you can. Jesus, when he saw the people, he had compassion on them. Notice, when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted. That is, they were weary, they were tired, and they were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Do you feel that way about people? If you're like me, there are people who just get under your skin. You know anybody like that? Matter of fact, the high school basketball coach told me that one time. He said, man, you just get under my skin. I said, well, what did I do? He said, nothing today that I know of yet. Right? People will get under my skin sometimes. And you know who can seemingly get under your skin more than anybody else? The better story guy. You know what I'm talking about? If you bring up something that happened to you, he's got a better story that's bigger and better, right? Okay? If I grew a good tomato in the garden, he had the biggest bumper crop he ever had in his life, right? The better story guy. Now, that can be annoying sometimes, right? But you have to ask yourself a question. Why does he always have a better story? Because he wants to impress you. He wants to impress you. And I've come to the conclusion that I can handle a better story because my life's not very exciting anyway. Have compassion on people. Tom Shade, this thing keeps dying, and I don't know why. It keeps closing. You know, what's wonderful is this technology works every time. I love it. The better story guy, he's not the easiest person to get along with. But he's trying to impress you. You know, my adult children talk to me about a filter. You know what they mean when they say, Dad, you got to remember your filter? You know what a filter is? You know what an oil filter is, right? What they're talking about is my mouth. Know when not to say something and know when to say something. Another phrase you might hear is, read the room. You know, these kind of people that just can't seem to read the room. You know, it's not always the easiest. Being social isn't always the easiest. I've said the dumbest things in the world. I'm telling you, I mentioned that preacher who had lost his leg, and I see him at the Pumpkin Festival with with a cane, and I ask him, because I'm trying my hardest not to say anything awkward, the first thing I ask him is, how you holding up, buddy? You ever been that way? Those guys can be annoying, I know it. But can't we have compassion on them? Jesus certainly did. Number two here, I need to hurry up, but number two, why did Jesus heal these people? If you go over to Mark 14, verse 14, you'll see the parallel. It says, and Jesus went out and saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion, and he healed their sick. You know, if you're going to have compassion on people, you've got to be willing to do something for them. Right? This is Christianity 101, to use another phrase. Jesus not only brought the gospel to people, but he filled their stomachs. He was concerned about them. You know, when we're supporting missionaries, so many times we want them to hand out rice and Bibles. And the reason for this is because if they never hand out the rice, those people are never going to want the Bible. Jesus isn't just some metaphysical spiritual being on a page. We have to show and introduce people to Jesus by the works and the things we do to the least of these. And during this time of the year, it is so hard sometimes to remember. By the way, read your bulletin this morning. There's a great article in there about great gifts. I think that's this morning's bulletin, wasn't it? Yeah. This is a gift-giving time of the year. Now, I hate the gift part. I've got a rant. I don't want anybody in my family getting me gifts. I don't want them spending money. Give me food, I'll take that. All right, but don't go out and spend money, especially in my household, because it's going to be my money that's spent, and I'm thinking, don't spend that on me. Laura keeps thinking I already got her a gift. Oh, she's in for a surprise. But to me, this time of the year is for kids. Now, I have said we are not getting the babies any toys. And I spoke with an iron fist. I can't help but notice all these toys are accumulating. And it's not from us, but these kids have grandparents and aunts and uncles, and they're excited. But giving's important. Well, this thing isn't working, so I'm just going to quit. This morning, as we consider this time of the year, how about we consider making all of the habits and hobbies we have this time of year an every day of the year thing? You know, there is sort of a romanticism attached to this time of the year, and I have to admit, I fall for it. This time of the year is my favorite time of the year. I don't know why I get more emotional. I eat more chocolate. But I'll tell you this, I think it's because we're so blessed. Laura and I stopped at one of those kiosks at the Hagerstown Mall when we went up there. And there was a fella who was from Bethlehem, and he was selling these nativity scenes and all of this stuff made of olive wood. And I went up to look at them because I like nativity scenes, and we ended up buying a little one that he made there. They make them over there. They have templates, and I knew the whole thing, and I walked up to him, and I started to talk to him, and we immediately clicked. He was from Bethlehem, and I told him I lived there, and he said, where did you live? And I said, Rishon LeZion, and immediately, here we are. We're off. And we're sort of bouncing and dancing in this conversation because I know how hard Bethlehem has had it right now. Okay? He's over here for a reason, because he can't make any money to feed his family over there. All tourism has shut down in that part of the country. That part, what I mean by is Palestinian. Bethlehem is one of the sites that is not under Israeli control. And it is shut down. There is no tourism. And I have to tell you, this guy is one of the best conversations we've had in a long time. His perspective was completely different. Why? Because he was over here during this time of the year and saw how people treated one another. Not all news is bad news. And not everybody is bad. But let us shine bright this season. Won't you come as we stand and sing our hymn of invitation?